Hello and welcome. I'm Wolfgang. These are my quick tips. Just last week, I had to sit down and think, what topic could I tackle for this quick tip? I look back at the last month, what's been going on in the world, and I found it extremely challenging to come up with anything positive to talk about. Just look at the European refugee crisis. That seems to be the discussion today, the heated topic. And I actually feel like a 6-year-old child watching a magician for the first time, wide-mouthed and in disbelief at what is occurring before me. See, only recently I used the topic for one of my quick tips, WTF. And I've actually considered using WTF2 for this one. See, then I decided to practice what I always preach. Stop, count to 10, and think before I blurt out my thoughts. And guess what? It works. So instantly I came up with this quick topic: you are responsible for your thoughts. Now, having said that, let me get a bit deeper than normal, and maybe a bit longer. And I may touch a few nerves with some of you. That's fine with me. You see, I'm here to spark debate and make you think. I believe we are in a world today where we need to seriously move out of our comfort zones, and we need to start tackling the real issues at hand so that we can ultimately find inner peace. So, in this quick tip, it's not kind of my normal, simple, positive bubble, but something a lot deeper. And I'm curious to see where it goes. Sometimes I feel like a school teacher, as I seem to be repeating the same lessons, but from different angles. See, the bottom line in life is that this is easier said than done. Daily I try to be positive. Daily I try and laugh and look at the light side of life. Please join me on my Facebook pages if you enjoy that kind of stuff. But there's always what I'd like to term as moron somewhere that seems to go out of their way to mess it all up for me. For example, politicians, subjective journalists, religious fundamentalists, and even family members. Now, this may all be part of daily life, but my problem is, why does the rest of humanity accommodate these negative people? Then, when the minority do attempt to argue with these negative sycophants, they immediately are labeled as racist or discriminatory when they see themselves losing the argument. And that's the end of that. What kind of logic is this? Does anything sound familiar to you? You see, I've always found myself to be an ethical person who puts honesty above everything else. Suddenly, other people label my thoughts as politically incorrect and accuse me of being narrow-minded. How does that work? Let me explain. Fact 1. The world we live in has a history of hate and wars. Fact 2. The majority of these wars have been caused because of religious and cultural differences. So far, this is pretty straightforward. Now, the New Age politician believes that multiculturalism is the way to go. In other words, put people together of different cultures and religions and force them to get along with each other. They haven't done so in the entire history of this planet, ever. But now is the time to try. What am I missing? Let me backtrack. What was it that appealed to me about visiting Europe in the past? It was that in one small area I could cross borders and be exposed to totally differing cultures and viewpoints. Whether I agreed with them or not had nothing to do with it. It was the experience of seeing how different cultures thought, lived, and behaved. It was their uniqueness that made me explore the different countries. If that wasn't enough, I'd make another trip to the Middle East or even to the Far East, to once again experience completely different cultures. This, I believe, was called the University of Life, that made global travelers such interesting people to talk to, and also embedded within these same global citizens a maturity and a wisdom that gave them a broad, objective view of the world that we live in. In fact, talking from personal experience and having traveled the entire world and speaking to similar social group of friends, it has made many of us, in a sense, more tolerant of other cultures and beliefs, because we've seen and experienced this. But when we visited these cultures, we came in as outsiders. We had to respect their beliefs. Even if we didn't agree with them, it was our choice to visit. So it was either a case of fit in or get out. Believe me, after a few years of going through this process, you start understanding the mindset and you take responsibility for your actions. You start understanding that if you don't fit in, there are consequences. You also start to realize that the society you have grown up in is completely different to another, and that you will always have differing views. Let me repeat, you'll always have different views. Traveling always reminded me of my psychology studies as a youngster, when the first thing I learned was to define the word abnormal. Interesting. There's no definition that covers all cultures. In fact, the definition clearly states that abnormal can only be defined depending on the culture and circumstances you grew up in. Interesting, huh? Now, I think understanding this and then traveling makes accepting foreign views and behavior a little more tolerable. You may still not agree with it at all, but believe me, you learn to tolerate it. You learn to take the responsibility and respect the other culture and religion simply because of who they are. Not because you agree or disagree with them, simply because of who they are. Now, having said this, you still have your own personal moral code that you adhere to and believe in. Let me simplify this even more. As I live in Africa, if you haven't picked up the accent, I thought it opportune to use the big 5 animals as an example. And if you don't know who they are, it's really simple. It's the elephant, the lion, the leopard, the rhino, and the buffalo. All of them live in the same area, Africa. All 5 are totally different. All 5 have a right to exist. But I've never seen a lion trying to convert an elephant to become a lion. Have you? I mean, imagine a giraffe trying to pull a hyena's neck up and trying to stretch it so that the hyena can become a giraffe. Hello? Am I bringing the ludicrousy across? All of the animals of the wild live together in harmony. They can cross each other's paths and they even help each other at times. And they're actually quite funky videos on YouTube where you see this. But they never try to convert each other to their own breed. Nor can they ever be put into one cage in a zoo together, because they will end up killing each other. That is logic. That is fact. Interestingly, just because they respect each other and don't really hang out with each other, they aren't called racists or elitists. They are different. They know it and they accept it. Now, back to the European refugee problem. And in hindsight, a nasty issue that has overflowed worldwide. As human beings, we are different. We are not the same. We come from different religious backgrounds. We come from different cultures and nations. We do not think the same. This is basic, simple logic to me. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. If I'm someone who has spent his entire life being brought up in believing one thing, is it not naive to think that you can change this? Whatever the European politicians are smoking, man, I'd love to try some of that stuff. Come on, this is insanity. You cannot convert everyone to be a multicultural one mindset. See, now I see you're maybe pulling back and thinking I'm unreasonable in my deductions of my animal analogy. Yes, we are not primates. We don't just behave off of basic instincts, or do we? If I look at the world today, personally, I feel many animals have a lot more sense than many human beings. However, let's do a comparison. Both animals and humans have a primal basic instinct to live, that's eat, reproduce, socialize, and seek shelter. These are pretty much the big ones. If we just take those, then the animal kingdom has outperformed us hands down, as they have gotten on much better in the last few thousand years than we as humans have. Our intellect and the fact that we can think, contemplate, strategize, and differentiate between right and wrong is what supposedly makes us superior. Well, looking at the world today, I wonder if that is true. However, in fairness, let us look at the superior intellect and where we have gone wrong in our use of this. Surely, if I can understand that you have been brought up in a different culture and religion from me, I should be able to comprehend that we don't think the same. What's difficult about that? Surely I should also then understand that as we have differing views and each believes that theirs is the right one, neither of us then has the right to judge the other. This, I believe, is called respect. It is also known as taking responsibility for your own life and responsibly accepting that someone else has the right to theirs. People don't want to do that though. For intellectual growth and the future of harmonious society, I couldn't agree more that we need to get to know each other, understand why we all think the way we do, plus we need to start interacting in a responsible and objective manner with the aim of both parties growing from this interaction. I also believe that as a human species, we are still far from this dream. Believe me, we have much to learn in terms of human interaction and respect for each other's belief and cultures. So right now, we cannot move forward, as most people are still living in the past and have not yet understood the importance of moving forward by learning from the past. Sadly, we still point fingers and we harp on the past. To create a melting pot, as is the case now in the European Union, I feel is asking for trouble, as humanity is simply not ready for such integration yet. There is still too much work to do. So how do you solve this problem? Why do I say you? Because it all starts with you and me. It's no use for any of us to sit back and complain about everything, and that's why the world is in the state it is, and We need to do something about it. So I've developed 6 rules that you and I need to follow. Number 1, be proud of your own culture and religion. Do not let anyone influence you on this. Number 2, when others are proud of their beliefs, do not judge them for it, accept them for it. Number 3, never criticize or put down others for their beliefs. You don't have the right to do so. 4, if someone with a differing view from yours is in your space and disrespects you, then ask them to leave. That you are entitled to do. However, expect to be treated the same in return. Think about that. Number 5, interact with different cultures and religions with the aim of gaining an understanding as to their thinking and why they believe what they do. It's only when you really know what makes someone else tick that you can judge for yourself whether you agree with them or not. It's no use being judgmental based on one or two behavior traits. We are quick to judge, but slow to actually learn what that person is really all about and what makes them tick. Think about that. And lastly, my rule number 6, acknowledge and accept that we are all different. Do not let politicians and religious leaders tell you otherwise. Take the responsibility to respect those differences. Then you'll be amazed at how much easier it is to start becoming friends. You know, I've got a group of friends and we meet regularly. We're all from different religions, from different cultures, from different races. When we meet, as we all walk into the door, we hug each other. We look each other into the eyes and say, I respect and love you as a fellow human being. We then socialize and we ask all those questions one is normally scared to and not supposed to ask of another culture. We use this time to query and even criticize, but if we do, we allow the opportunity for an answer and to be criticized back. At the end of the evening, when we all leave, we again hug each other, look each other into the eyes, and once again say, I respect and I love you as a fellow human being. That's pretty powerful, man. Do you know the first few get-togethers were an all-out debate and even arguments and fighting at times. But our arrival and departure rule, hugging, I love you, I respect you, made the difference. Today, we've gotten over our minor differences. Yes, after a few meetings and really getting to know each other, we realized that we all had warped views of each other's beliefs, and that at the end of the day, there were actually only minor little differences that separated us. Today, we actually respect each other for those differences, and we grow as a group of deep friends who will always be there for each other. Where am I different from you? Why can't you do that? So what makes me so special for being able to do this? Nothing. I merely gave a fellow human being the chance to show me who they really were. I took the responsibility of taking that first step. Now, if we as humanity all took that same step, we could all change the way very soon that we all see each other. But actually, it all starts with you. It's really as simple as that. Thank you for listening to my ramblings. I'll see you next time.